Welcome to Fashion Neurosis, Stefano Pilati.
Thank you for having me, darling.
Can you tell me what clothes you're wearing today and why you chose them?
Okay, so I'm wearing something that I designed. I didn't have my choice because I'm coming from Sicily and I had a limited wardrobe at my disposal. So let's say that what I'm wearing is the best I could do, I think, for the occasion, to celebrate being together today, So I'm wearing a jacket which I like a lot because it's kind of a feminine jacket, but for some reason I think I managed to, make it masculine on me. And then probably the shape of the pants I'm wearing are the one I prefer the most. As a tribute to London and Britain, I'm wearing a Turbulent Asser polo net and the George Cox creepers.
I love them.
And I guess that's it. I mean, I love heavy socks, especially if they are hand knitted.
Can you tell me about the handkerchief you're holding?
Oh, sometimes I do things without really. Of course, I think about it, but I don't overthink about it in the sense that I'm quite instinctual. And since you asked me to be here, then I thought, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna wear this and and I'm gonna have an handkerchief in my hands, and I was like. And I wonder, where does that come from? And I thought, it's very, women in the 17th century. And also I thought, ironically, if I get emotional, I can always have something to, And then I thought that it was, I don't know. I see it quite poetic in a way, but
Yeah.
I know that it probably won't make sense for for many people except for myself.
I love that detail about poetic, because one of the things that's so attractive about you is this poetic side, and that you bring so much nuance to you have I find that you have something of the kind of elegance of a bullfighter about you, of a matador. And then you have this poetic kind of fluid side, and the combination is just so potent and effective. And I wondered what the first piece of clothing you wore that made you feel powerful.
I had an ensemble. When I was like maybe 6 years old, my mother wanted me to take guitar lessons. And I remember that I had like a Levi's jacket and a pair of Levi's flares, and they were matching, and it was probably like moleskin, in a denim color. Very 70s. I mean, like it was 71. And I remember that I loved to wear that to go to take guitar lessons, because I felt like, almost like a rock star. And in fact, I didn't learn at all to play guitar. I got bored because the teacher, I don't know, it was like old school, whatever. So it didn't really impress me. But I was so happy to go to take lessons because of that outfit. Yeah, I was 6, and it was bang on the 70s, and I think it was a pretty powerful look at that time,
Yeah.
And Levi's was really like kind of everything, in a way. Only later I started to learn about like Wrangler and Roy Rogers, but for me it was always about Levi's.
They have a romance associated with them, I think. They're
Yes.
so evocative and precise.
Yes.
Because you have the style of someone I think, brought up in a kind of Proustian, exquisite luxury. And I wondered what your actual home life was like as a child.
My mother taught me a lot about dressing up for occasions, mixing colors in the right way, using the right weights of fabric, depending on the seasons. She tended to buy me clothes that they were a bit oversized, so that I could grow in it. And she really, really cared about, dressing me up in a nice way. And so I think I've been always thankful to that. But what was particular is that I kind of made it my own pretty soon. In fact, by very early age, like the Levi's ensemble, I started to want things myself, to buy things that I wanted my mother not to decide for me. I mean, I was obsessed with Cerruti, and I was looking at the people around, and kids. My sisters were 10 years older than me, and so they had a school that was bang on the 70s, so they had all these flower power kind of looks with shearlings and border shearlings, and I wanted all that. The problem is that I was so little that nothing was in my size. And then I remember that I was experimenting at home, outside my mother, let's say, style, and I was changing 4 or 5 times a day. And when I was coming back from school, and my mother was furious. I was going to dinner, like a simple dinner, family dinner, but I was stealing ties from my father's closet and, go to dinner with the tie. And, they were all looking at me. My sisters, they were already in PJ, I was showing up, with the tie. And they were
wonderful.
Wait, what is going on here, And then if I thought that my mother didn't wear what I thought she would have, I made her change. And that was also a disaster, because I was really insisting. I mean, I made her really uncomfortable until she changed, and then she couldn't really. I mean, poor thing. I mean, she couldn't really process how much right I was about what I told her to change. And but at that age also, you do things. I mean, I guess I was processing very, very fast, but I don't know. I wasn't really realizing the power that I had for that kind of instinct, let's say.
And what did you like her to wear? How did she dress, and what did you prefer her to wear?
Oh, well, my mom was really old school, not old school, but she was born in 1933, and so she was like a post-war child, and so the scarcity at that time, made her buy things for occasions, and so she kept, I remember that she brought me shopping with her, and she was buying things, and I really liked them, and then she never wore them until she had an occasion, that made that happen 2 weeks later or a month later, and I was obsessed with that, because I was like, what's the point, to buy stuff for not wearing it? I mean, you keep it in your closet. And she was like, yes, but whatever, she complained. And I always wanted to wear like the last purchase, or like the things that we bought together somehow, and so I wanted her to, always look impeccable, even if she had to go out to do groceries for like, 20 minutes, you know what I mean? I couldn't stand the fact that she didn't dress up, for every single occasion, including coming to pick me up at school or something like. Obviously I can tell now, but I think it was my form of telling her that she was beautiful and she should have, feature her beauty and, dress up because she could,
Yeah, it must have been rather wonderful for her to have all this attention and this appreciation coming from you. How did your father handle that?
Ignored it completely, not completely, because my childhood wasn't the happiest one, frankly speaking. I was very, very much attached to my mom, and if my mom was giving me attentions, my father thought that it wasn't really educational. My sister got a bit jealous, and so. And I didn't understand why she didn't stand, for me in that sense, because when she was letting go, certain things that I thought were creating a sort of a intimacy and complicity with her, I actually felt them like a rejection as well. So overall, I grew up feeling that I was a bit annoying, that they were a bit indifferent. I did feel a lot of rejection, not understood really, in the way that I wanted to express myself. And also like the fact that I had two older sisters and my mom, which were like three women in my family, I grew up very much in admiration of them, but I couldn't really show it to them, I spent a lot of time by myself, and also like I was trying to come through as a child with an artistic personality, but it was not really heard. My first PT in Florence, I was 12. My sister brought me because I insisted, and nobody understood why I wanted to go, but I wanted to go, and probably was the first time where just walking through the aisles of the fair, and see all these booths with like fabrics and yarns and clothes, I was like in heaven.
Really? Pitti is the trade fair of
yes, Pitti is the trade fair in Florence, which is still going somehow. Even before that, the same sister brought me to the Cerruti store in Milan, and that literally freaked me out, to the point that a couple of years later, I saved money and I bought myself the first Cerruti item. And it's when I started to be pretty much obsessed, with clothes, I have to say. It was very, very early on. I was obsessed with Lacoste. So I wanted them in every possible color. And if you think about it, Lacoste is a 60s kind of, phenomenon. I mean, it was playing tennis like only, 20 years earlier than that, even less, So it was not like now, it was kind of exclusive in a way, And Lacoste, they were the only polo necks,
It's quite a uniform Lacoste. It's interesting that you gravitated to that at that particular moment, when I associate you with more sort of like flamboyance almost, even though it's very considered.
Yeah, I mean, what was also good, and this was my mother touch, that we were buying Lacoste, and then, you know, almost for every color I had the matching pants, you know,
Wow.
which I kind of liked. I mean, it was, you know, it was cool to wear Lacoste. It wasn't that
Yeah.
usual for a 6, 7, 8, 9 years old kid, you know. No, it's not like now, you know. It was very upper class, even if I wasn't. By 9 or 10, you know, I started to take the tram by myself and go in Via Monte Napoleone and, you know, check the windows. And one Christmas I bought, with my savings, I bought a gift to my mom at Gucci. And you know, I don't know. I seriously got very much obsessed about fashion very early on, I have to say.
Your clothes and your accessories are incredibly refined, but you also seem to have an influence from fetish. And I wondered what your favorite fetish is.
I don't know, fetish. I
Maybe I'm thinking about your shoes, and maybe it's me that has the fetish, because I've always been obsessed with the shoes that you've made, especially when you were at Saint Laurent, the things I bought, and there's so much tension in the accessories that you make and in the clothing, but you seem to have this extra layer that makes them obsessively desirable, and I was just wondering where that came from.
Okay, so yes, I would say that shoes are probably one of the most important thing for me. I mean, I will never have enough shoes. Also because I believe, and this I openly told even to some of my friends that are shoe designers, you know, that making clothes is pretty cool and you can be really good, but if you, whatever you wear, if it's fantastic, it can be a fantastic dress, suit, combination, whatever, look, you know, with the wrong shoes, it's just like crap, you know. If you wear nothing, like a simple a white t-shirt, pair of pants, as simple as they can be, you know, but with the right shoes, you know, you're kind of everything, you know. So I always say that 50% of the look, at least, is the shoe, in the sense that they define your look very, very much. So I don't know if in that sense we can call them fetish. And I think that I carry that all through, you know, all my life, all my professional life as well. But I would say also my personal one, in terms of, you know, if we talk about style or my style, or what I fetish the most. Yeah.
With your radical elegance, you design heels for men. And I've seen you wear these wonderful boots that have a higher heel. Is that part of a code that you're breaking out of a formality whilst also having this very kind of old school training from your mother?
Well, you know, I decided to do heels for men after a series of thoughts. You know, the way that it works for me is instinctually, without even knowing necessarily why, but instinctually I look for something, I want something. Like in the case, for example, of the boots with the heel, you know, I haven't been the first to do them. One day I was here in London and I was at Dover Street Market, and then a kid, while I was eating at upstairs, and a kid walked by, and he had one black tabby on and one beige tabby on, and I got obsessed. It looked so cute. I mean, I was like, oh my God, and but the tabby, as they have the 9 centimeter, heel. And of course, it doesn't exist in size 10 or size 44. It was, I guess maximum was like size 40 or 41. So this kid was definitely I got obsessed. This kid obviously was wearing a small size for whatever reason. I mean, it was kind of skinny and not too tall, so probably, size 40 or 41. And so desperate, because I was like, oh my God, I want them. And so I actually wrote John Galliano to have a pair of 9 centimeter tabby boots, black, in size 44. And the shoe designer was also someone that assisted me at Saint Laurent. So the connection was kind of, made easily. And I got them.
Oh, wow.
And so when I started to wear them, beside the fact that they were the tabby, and I think I'm the only one in the bloody world to have a pair of tabby my size with the 9 centimeter heel, which is how they look the best, by the way.
Yeah.
I really felt so empowered with my posture and my swag, and and I started to realize, how conventional somehow we are, just because we've been educated like that, and in the last, let's say, maybe 10 years, we've been speaking about equality and the role of genders, more and more. And so I was very much attracted by the idea of, again, for me, when I wear heels, I get everything from it, again, the posture, and, I become almost 2 meters tall, but for me, it's I tested them going, keeping them on for 12 hours, because I really wanted to understand being a fashion designer. When you're like, oh, this looks great, give her the heels or something. What are you doing when you do it? When you say that, how the woman feel? You can ask, but we kind of used, to maybe sometimes I would say even overuse some conventions, some codes that, I think it's time for a man to experiment a bit further than that. And I'm not talking about, cross-dressing or things like that. But, even the first time that I designed a skirt, I started to think wait, do I want the zip on the side or, and so, I just turn it and I add the zip in the front, which is like what you normally do with the pants. And then the slit I wanted in the front for comfortable reasons. One day I was doing some works at home, and there were some builders, and we had to check a plan that, so we were at the table, but I had a skirt on, and I was like, oh my God, I can't show up like this. And I was like, yes, you can. So I went, and, and I didn't see any hesitation about these guys, me, having a skirt on. But only a little bit, little by little, I realized that they were actually checking me out. But you could tell from from the expression, or at least this is what I realized, or I thought it was, that they kind of wanted to be shocked about it,
Yeah.
but they weren't really, because they kept the same tone, the same attitude, let's say, towards me. Of course, I was the client, but you know what I mean? And that for me was the moment where I was like, well, you can do anything you want. It depends how. And in that sense, I think, the fact that I made a skirt that as a man made, could be comfortable, and it was not like for the sake of shocking, or it was very powerful, I think, and fashion could serve this form of power.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that really, really surprised me is that, you women, you are obliged, to sit and cross your legs if you have a skirt on, or keep your legs really, tight and on the side like this, while as a man, I don't have that body language. And so, and I wear boxers. And one day I was having lunch, and I realized that. And then, I said to a friend of mine, "Oh, please, can you take a picture of me like I am normally, with the, wearing a skirt on." And of course, you could see my boxers, right? And it didn't give me any at all, a feeling that I was déguisé, or I was provoking, or it felt the most normal thing in the world, to the point that I was like, oh my God, if I will do a campaign, for the skirt, that's the way that I will take the picture, because
Wow.
it's so interesting, like when you try the heels or the skirt in this case, or maybe even some fabrics, sometimes, like silk shirts and stuff, it's a feeling, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
a foulard is a feeling, is how, how you interact, with
Yeah.
things that can change the perception even in other people, not only on yourself, but also in other people. And for me, that kind of journey is very romantic. It's very poetic. I don't know. I feel the sum. It's a form of reaching an understanding between the genders. Through philosophy, I guess, philosophy of the clothes. I don't know, or philosophy of fashion.
Also, I suppose the power of good design is the philosophy that takes someone from resistance to thinking, oh, maybe I could wear that. Like, I think when somebody, your description of the builders, that they were able to be natural with you, is a testament to the design working. Because when it's good, someone will start to think, oh, maybe I could do that. And somehow the boundary is changed, the frontiers are opened up, and, men will think, yeah, I can wear a skirt actually, because it's not a skirt like it is for a woman. This is the garment that I can wear, and it kind of enhances me, and maybe even enhances my masculinity, like the way a kilt does, which is so macho. And it's just accepted. I love that look.
Yeah, and even like the high heel boots. What I've learned, and I designed so many shoes in my life. Really, like an unbelievable number of shoes. But what I liked about what I did is that they were boots for men, that they can look also good on women, but primarily they're boots that they look good on men, and that for
Yeah.
me was like, whoa, who would have guessed that? I mean, not would have guessed because I wanted to, but and I think that has a lot to do in I design things that I would wear. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
On the subject of shoes, you created some amazing things at Saint Laurent. One of those things was the tribute sandal. And I wondered what it was a tribute to.
Oh, why did I call it tribute?
Such an amazing shoe.
A tribute. Well, for sure it was a tribute. I mean, for me, it's always been a tribute to a woman. It's a tribute to a woman. And this, I try to remember if I had another reason to call it tribute, but I guess that every time, because it was very much in my lexicon, like, oh my gosh, she looks good. This is really, this skirt looks great. It's a tribute to your beauty. It's a tribute to your femininity. It's a tribute to, it's always been a bit like this, me doing fittings or doing looks,
I think it's one of the reasons why everyone loves your work so much is, as a woman, the feeling of how much care you take of a woman is so palpable, so that whenever someone buys your clothes, there's a feeling of being cared for and made to look the best possible version of yourself, which is how you've described wanting your mother to look, and it really travels through. It's such a powerful intention. And the shoe, the way it elevates a woman, and it creates this incredible posture. It's very sexy and very independent as well, in a sort of divine and endearing way.
Well, there was a lot of speculation about how Saint Laurent should have been, after Saint Laurent, and I guess that I didn't match any of the expectations that people had, because for me, A was an amazing, elegant designer before being provocative. B, it was an amazing, prolific designer, because somehow he really traveled with his mind season after season. And so, you could find, or we've been able to talk about Saint Laurent codes only after, 20 years of a body of work, not like season after season. And especially like with this thing about the codes, when people go like, oh, use the codes of the house. You can't use the code of the house every single season, because otherwise, what is it? I mean, I don't know, people sometimes they should shut up. But anyway, I could tell that he was in admiration with women, and that was very much my approach too. After the 90s, where sexy, was everything, and low waist and show the G-string and, all this kind of thing, like, shirts open and stuff like that. It wasn't at all what I was looking for, because for me, the Saint Laurent woman was untouchable. The Saint Laurent woman was always like the one in charge, the one that, you don't touch me, I choose, and that for me was very, very important. And it was kind of hard, because basically I was going against what everybody, expected me to do, But for me, they expected me to do that because they really didn't understand profoundly what history was and the Saint Laurent design was. And in that sense, it was a very, unique approach, I would say. My formation, my education in fashion has been always primarily in menswear. and of course, I did want to, when I was little, I was also sketching for women's wear and stuff, and I was thinking about my sisters or my mom, about being menswear primarily, Cerruti, Armani. I suffered it a bit, but they taught me that to be a good women designer, you should have been, a very good menswear designer and learning the craft of tailoring and everything. So the first time that I really started to design for women was when I was at Prada. And for me, beside Prada, Miu Miu didn't matter really. For me, the most important thing is that Miuccia would love what I would suggest, because even if she, sometimes it happens, and I've never been jealous about this. I've never been like, you give ideas, that's your role. Mm-hmm. You're her assistant, so you dare to give her ideas, for her to choose or not choose, and even sometimes she chose and then she, edited or whatever. I never took it personally, because for me, my challenge was to please her. It was to, but not in a yes man kind of way. You know what I mean? Like to feel her challenge and to embrace her challenge, and that for me was like super formative, and I loved, to have a woman in mind, But then when I stepped into Saint Laurent, who was the woman? Because actually the woman of the 60s woman of Saint Laurent, the 70s woman of Saint Laurent, and I would say like until the mid-80s of Saint Laurent, that woman was gone, and so, and everything could have been a retro approach, and you could start, I don't know if you remember, but when all of a sudden, beside the citations of Miuccia, of Saint Laurent in her work, but Saint Laurent started to be also like, interesting to buy, like, vintage or, all of a sudden, like in the beginning of the 2000s or so, I was like, well, girls, I mean, like, go buy secondhand if you want a crepe de chine purple, shirt with a cravat, you know what I mean? Or a pleated skirt in Pied Pool, like, why should I give you something that is in the secondhand shop? And we all know, what is the Saint Laurent woman of the 2000s, and so when I stepped into Saint Laurent, one of the things that I loved the most and the most challenging as well is that I realized that for me to design women's wear was really a journey to the unknown, to a universe that I don't know, that I can do, no matter which effort I make, I will never be a woman, so I wanted to be as much physical I could, and by the way, and I never been the man that wanted to wear women clothes at all, never, ever. And this has nothing, it's just not polemic or whatever. I just say that when I started to do Saint Laurent women, I really like drape fabrics on myself. And I remember once it was Sunday afternoon, and many times I worked during the weekend because I could focus. I had everything in my studio, in the office, and so I could do work, And then I remember that one afternoon I bought these petticoats because I wanted, to see, to feel the weight and to see how they were made, and I wore one on top of the jeans. Imagine that, like, I'm like this and I wore one petticoat on, and I was sure that nobody was in the building. And in fact, all of a sudden, with the music on, and I was like checking, I don't remember if the colors or something, and my CEO just walked in and she was like, what's going on, and I said to her, like, we all want to do something for women, but poor women, what does it feel, to have this volume around your waist, and walk around and sit, and so that really educated me to be fascinated by the journey, by this projection, to in that I think that it was a way for me to know my feminine side, my femininity. And funnily enough, when I decided to do also my brand, I was like, isn't it weird? Because I have men that they say to me, oh my God, I love what you wear. I would wear it all, as a woman, and so I was like, and I don't think it has to do with unisex. I think it has to do with, maybe you mentioned it earlier, like there is a freedom and fluidity about how I use codes, and probably is also why, like at Saint Laurent especially, they want you to be consistent in something, while for me was, my game, my play, my approach was to challenge.
I think you did.
Everything.
For me, your collections for Saint Laurent were so authentically Saint Laurent because you brought the avant-garde of your own work and his work into the new collections. And I always remember when I was studying fashion in Rome, and Vivienne Westwood was living in Italy as well, and she came over to stay with me, and I showed her my Saint Laurent books, and she was sort of slightly quizzical. And then a bit later she said, I had no idea what a great designer. I didn't realize he'd done everything. And she'd spotted all these things that I hadn't seen, like the cone bra and all these things that had been done later. And he'd done all those things. And I loved what you did for Saint Laurent. I remember, how you used grey flannel, and it was just so elegant, and also this thing that you always do, which is radical.
Well, and also, like, Saint Laurent used to do like 120 looks. You know what I mean? And if you study it, in the haute couture shows, only the last, let's say, 20 looks were the one that define the narrative, the theme of that show, because before was like, it's morning, and then it's lunch, and then it's afternoon, and then there's the widow look, and then there's, there were like looks for all the occasions, the ceremony, and then the cocktail, and which was amazing. By the way, I loved it all, but the span of attention of the press and the audience is, it got shorter and shorter and shorter. So, to do 40 looks and to say it all and to try to, also like stay focused on what you are researching in that moment, to follow your instincts. It wasn't that easy, and then and journalists, I guess they don't have the time to go deep into it, and I wasn't the best in explaining what I did and why I did it. You know,
Well, it is a notoriously hard job being a designer, and I wonder how you cope with the feelings of, feeling down.
I kept working. You know, I remember that they also asked me like, "Oh my God, with so much stress, you know, how do you cope with it?" And I was like, "Just work and just keep working,
Yeah.
just keep believing in what I was doing, and and mostly be comfortable with my instincts,
Yeah, that's so
my
crucial.
intuition. You know, I remember that once I did a collection, and at the beginning of the process, I was like, "What do you really like?" And I was like, "A gray sweatshirt," and I was like, "Oh, great! That is so Saint Laurent. Gonna be like a, major this show." You know what I mean? I was like, I mean, come on, like you are Saint Laurent. What you really like? A gray sweatshirt? You're like, oh no. And so, because I bought 2 vintage gray sweatshirts like in New York, and they were so cool, and that's all I liked. And by the way, I end up, to do a show that was all in Jersey, or mainly, that played with proportion, and he wanted to be also a bit like not preppy, but like with a hint of like sportiveness that you could find maybe in the 30s, in like the first tennis uniform, stuff
Yeah.
like that, and then take it further, and make it more glamorous, using like the stars and like plexiglass, t-shirts and t-shirts. I mean tops. In retrospect, if I think about it, like streetwear, like what we sell now is like hoodies and sweatshirts. What I mean? And so I was like, and plus I was doing ready to wear. I wasn't doing haute couture, so which I found also a bit harsh, to pretend that, you do something comparable to haute couture, when in fact you're doing ready to wear,
Yeah.
So I also found that a bit ignorant, like when people too cool, they were like, oh, it's not like the old Saint Laurent, and I was like, what do you mean? Like which one? Do you know which one? You're
Yeah.
talking about what?
It's like people are so attached to Saint Laurent. They feel they own it. It's like James Bond. People are always going on, oh, it's not like this and not like that, while they're missing the beauty of the new that's evolving out of it. And your comment about proportion, which is such a huge thing in fashion, but it's not really discussed, but it's the key thing. It's just made, and I think it's what makes something modern. And I wondered what your favorite shape to impose your look on is. I know you're very good with the shoulder, and do you have a particular form? You spot someone and think, oh yes, I know what I could do with that shape.
Oh, this is a good point, because, for example, even before I moved to Saint Laurent, when we were at Prada, simply like to go up or down 2 inches with a skirt for us was like, oh my God, we made it shorter this season. Oh my God, we made it longer this season. I mean, like, that was it, like the waist, or, for some, I think that there is a reason why I raised the waist, from my very first show. I was sick of seeing women that so déguisées that, even if they couldn't wear those pants, those low waist pants, they did, and they thought that was feminine, and men, they responded to it like a feminine gesture, while it's not for everybody, A, and B, I thought that, especially in that moment at the beginning of 2000, like everywhere was written that man as a male, was as a gender, was in crisis. Gay liberation was way more popular than ever. Women, were okay to be single. Men lost that kind of power. Like 20 years before, 30 years before, women, they were getting married, just to, somehow, like, defining their life, or mothers, or, so there was a real male gender crisis going on, and so I thought, and I thought that it was reflected also in fashion, as it should be.
Yes.
And so they called them tully skirt. I never really, I didn't invent that name. In the Vittorio De Sica movie, so, in Italy, when a woman passed by, they still do it. A woman passed by and it's really Sophia Loren, and they go like, and they make that shape, with the hands, and I was like, that's exactly what I want to bring back. In fact, Tim Blanks, I have to say that many, many times, was like, oh my God, she looked so uptight, but you could tell that she was probably naked underneath, that skirt, and I was like, right on, girl.
That.
It's exactly, that's a feeling I wanted her to, when I said untouchable, unknown, very, very for herself. You know what I mean?
I think that's definitely the power of clothes. And I wanted to ask you, if you fancy someone and you don't like what they're wearing, does it kill your desire?
My desire towards that someone?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say that. I don't even know how they're called in English. I mean, skinny jeans and those short socks, that they pretend, that people wear, like pretending that they don't have the socks on, but they, what I'm saying? The one that they cover just the foot. That is such a no-go that, it's really a no-go. But I would say that what I distinguish between, to answer that, is that if someone, for me, is sexually very attracting and I'm frisky, I can also forget about the skinny jeans and those shoes, so those socks. You know what I mean? It depends on the occasion. I mean, on the situation. Otherwise, in general, I mean, he needs to blow my mind with his mind, and because it can be a Nobel Prize, but if he wears skinny jeans and those socks, I kind of avoid. I'm become very shady, very, very shady. Like, no doubts. I mean, horribly shady. Yeah. I mean, those things are the one that, oh my God, I can't. Another thing that turned me off is like the black nail polish on men. I can't. And then, I mean, there's many things. There's many things. But in general, also like, that kind of normcore, quite luxury looks, for me are like, I mean, there's no escape. They're douchebags.
Yeah. You're a designer that other designers look up to and admire. And I wondered, is there anyone that you look up to?
Well, for me, my idol, I mean, to a point of like a fan, like I would have been a groupie if he would have been, like a star, is Ray Kawakubo. is my absolute idol.
Did you ever meet Ray Kawakubo?
Oh my God, I hope you didn't ask me this. Yes, yes, I did. And the first time, it was in the showroom in Place Vendôme. Vendôme. And so Adrian, told me, oh, come, I want to introduce you to Ray. Ray's there, she want to meet you. And there was also Ronnie Newhouse there, and I was like, no, I cannot, I'm going to be pathetic, I cannot, and literally Ronnie, like pushed me from the back, like, when you were a kid and then you hide behind your mom, and they actually pull, they like, go, and they push you like that. Exact, that scene, so already started so wrongly, because I was like, come on. And then, when I introduced myself, and I was like, I just wanted to say that for me, there's nobody above you, and, you're my idol, and thank you for everything you do, and I think she liked her, also because, like a few months later, that I DSM was also kind of involved with the brand and everything, and so, and it happened that I was in a meeting with other people, and it was the actual office where she was, and she stayed there for 2 hours, listening to me talking, about my brand and stuff, and while I was talking, I was like, oh my God, am I too loud? Did I laugh too much? Did am I too stupid? Or like, I was like wrecked, because nothing would be the worst for me to not have, Ray Kawakubo respect or recognition or validation,
It doesn't get much better than that, having her
I don't
there
think
for
so.
2 hours.
I don't think so. I mean,
It's so marvelous.
What I love about my work, which I think I expect to see in others, is that when we look up for someone, or at someone, is that, for example, for me, Comme des Garçons is a language. Martin was a language.
Yeah.
Helmut was a language. Asdin was a language. And so it's almost like you learn the languages to define yourself and to create your own one,
Well, Random Identities is your language. It's your own label, your own design, your own brand, and that seems very much, you seem to bring all the elegance and all the kind of avant-garde of your experience and your amazing gift to that brand, which I remember when you launched it at Dover Street Market, and I came with my son and we both bought things, and I felt like you took care of us in this way that very few people are able to, in terms of our aesthetic and our style. And I wondered how you're progressing with Random Identities.
Well, somehow, after COVID, I never really recovered, and that's a pity. And I wish I wouldn't say this. That said, I still believe that it was a great endeavor. It is. There is, but the purpose of that brand was different. While Saint Laurent, for me, was like challenging myself. Being a Prada, like I said earlier, for me it was a challenge, to work for her, for Muse. It's like, and Saint Laurent was my challenge, was my research, was proving myself, that my design was fully expressing what I think, good fashion is.
Yeah.
Random had almost like an educational, or has an educational spirit in it that is oriented to take care of, the young generation with beautiful clothes, affordable, with no visible logos. Actually, with the logo that induce who purchases it, to insert your name in it, to really like make you to make you feel that you own your clothes,
Yeah.
that you own the silhouette that you chose, that the clothes are at your service, not the other way around.
Well, thank you so much, Stefano, for being on Fashion Neurosis. It's been wonderful to talk to you and listen to you and think about all your ideas. And thank you so much.
No, thanks for having me, Bella. I really appreciate it, and I had fun.
You too.